Hello and welcome to episode 29 of The Closing Track, the official podcast of AnotherAscendingLark.com, where the faith that you believe collides with the music that you love. I'm Austin, your host, and I am joined as always with...
Brett, the Texan from Oklahoma.
Which is a contradiction of contradictions. There is no law in the universe that can logically resolve such an incredible... I mean, I can't even speak. It doesn't just make any sense at all.
I mean, I was born in Oklahoma, lived in Oklahoma, I think for like 3 or 4 years, and then the rest of my life has been in Texas, thankfully.
Well, okay.
We can't help it that it's God's country.
Says the Oklahoman who is joining us. Yeah, we are super excited this episode. We are recording in Shawnee, Oklahoma.
Actually, Tecumseh.
Yeah, technically Tecumseh.
We're recording in Tecumseh, Oklahoma.
Which is close to Shawnee, Oklahoma.
I mean, it's like Canyon is a part of Amarillo, as Tecumseh is a part of Shawnee.
Yeah, it's a good comparison.
I mean...
Except both are bigger.
Well, yes, but they might as well just be the same thing. Our friend John, who we have known for several years from the camp that must not be named, we are at his wonderful house right now, spending the weekend with him and other friends from the camp that must not be named, because Oklahoma City has actual record shops and Amarillo's only record shop closed down. So, John, thank you so very much for taking time out of your evening to join us for this episode.
Yeah, anytime. Just hop on 40 and head this way. I'll record with you anytime.
Well, soon that won't be an option anymore because you're going to be married and
Yes.
So yeah,
It will be a bit longer drive.
A bit longer, like twice as long one way.
Totally doable though, and there's a lot of stuff to do in Bryan College Station, and a kind of short trip to San Antonio and other fun places.
San Antonio, I love San Antonio. I really do love San Antonio.
Yeah, if I had to move from the Texas Panhandle, San Antonio would definitely be my first choice. It is a great city.
It is a great city. I mean, that's why we come back. That's why we go there every year when we're coming back from South Padre Island for Beach Reach, the mission trip that Brett and I have gone on to South Padre Island every year. Yeah, so this is going to be a really unique episode because there is no real agenda for this one. We're not doing any news. We're not doing any reviews. We just got through, and by just got through, I mean like about
Off
2
the
hours.
cuff.
Off the cuff. 2 hours ago or so, we just got back from spending the day in the city, record store hopping. We went and had some good burgers and some good beer, and so this episode is dedicated to Record Store Day, and we're going to talk about what we bought, what we wish we could have bought. What we love about vinyl, what we don't like about vinyl, and just there is no real agenda for this episode, which is why if you are listening in the podcast thing, you're looking at the length of the episode, and you're like, oh geez, that's really shorter than normal. Yeah, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
But if you want to contact us, you can get a hold of us on Facebook by going to Another Ascending Lark. You can find us on Twitter at A8Lblog. You can send us an email at anotherasscendinglark@gmail.com, and of course you can visit the new website anotherasscendinglark.com. I also forgot to mention, and have been forgetting to mention for the past couple of weeks, that we are in the podcast store. Obviously, we have instructions on the page for Android users to be able to subscribe to the show, and then also we are also on YouTube now. So if you have friends who want to listen but just don't have neither an iPhone or its cheap counterpart, then you can definitely get on YouTube anywhere and just listen to the show. So, I have a headache right now, and my headache is still really, really strong at the moment. And I'm not going to lie, I'm really jealous, looking at John's very empty glass of delicious liquid gold. John, what was that earlier? What are we drinking except that I'm not drinking?
That is Ranger Creek Texas Bourbon. This is the 36 small caliber series, limited batch, 1,400 bottles. This is number 692. So there are hopes that I will be able to pick up another bottle before they're all gone.
Yeah, I will say this is definitely really good bourbon.
I mean, normally we don't drink liquor on the show. Normally we have a beer or I have coffee or whatever. But it's nice to be able to diversify just a little bit.
The coffee might help get rid of the headache.
As might the bourbon.
But
Studies show that caffeine does help with headaches, especially people who have chronic migraine.
Because I can tell you for a fact that on Friday, I woke up at exactly the time I normally leave for work, and so I didn't get my coffee. So I had a splitting headache for most of the day. Then I drank a liter of Dr. Pepper, and I was fine.
Yeah, I was in the office room of our apartment, and I was leaving it to go get changed for work or whatever, and I'm like, wait a minute, nobody's in the living room. Like, did Brett already leave? And then I go and he's like sound asleep on his bed, and I'm like, oh crap, he's gonna be late. So
Yeah, thankfully I wound up being exactly on time, so everything worked out just fine.
yeah, and then we immediately left and then drove through a storm, and we got here. We got here last night about what, 10-ish?
Little
Yeah, it
after
was about
10.
10.
Little after
And then
10.
we immediately started watching Gallivant, which John has been trying to get us to watch forever now. And
I mean, I do really like the show, but there are a lot of innuendos.
yeah, that's an understatement. And apparently John says that it's like it gets like worse, right?
Yeah, it actually does get a little bit worse. The levels of absurdity that they take it to are what makes it funny. We had a conversation earlier that, sure, they take a lot of the, the low comedy, hits to the groin type stuff, but the high comedy that gets thrown in there makes it all the better. It doesn't cover a whole variety of sins, but
Then, of course, I have to love the dark humor in it. Like in the first episode, I think it was, where the king is singing,
I want to shoot him with the crossbow. I want to stab him in the eye.
basically just singing about the various ways he wants to kill Gallivant.
I'm just shaking my head, and if you could hear me shaking my head, it's that's yeah. I was watching this last night, and I'm like, well, I remember seeing the previews for it, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Then I start watching it, I'm just like, oh my gosh, there's a. It seems like every other joke is a sexual innuendo. Like, why, what the crap? But oh well. Anyway, record store day. So we first, in this crazy day that we've just had, we went to Men's Warehouse, and that was an adventure in of itself. Pro tip, don't ever try to get measurements for anything on a Saturday during prom season.
Granted, I mean, I think a lot of things could have been better, but like it seemed like half of the staff was stocking stuff or just rearranging things.
I don't know. But then anyway, we go, and the first place we were going to try to go to was Guest Room Records, which we drive by it and we see that, oh, there's a giant line around the building. We should probably not go here since we have a lunch arrangement at 12:30.
12:30.
And so we go to Trolley Stop?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Trolley Stop.
Trolley Stop Records, which I love that place.
It was pretty great, just outside of Chinatown, or the Asian district in OKC. So that's
The location of it was definitely really interesting. But I mean, as far as like the atmosphere goes, I mean, that's like it was the most authentic feeling record shop. Like when I think of record shop, I think of Trolley Stop.
And
yeah.
I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I mean, even for record day, they had a sort of blues duo started that actually was playing in there live, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Sub sandwiches, cookies, chips, but the store itself. Oh yeah, they had food. Sorry. But the store itself, I mean, it felt almost like it closed 20 years ago, and they just opened the doors yesterday.
Yeah.
It was mostly old vinyl.
Really,
Really old vinyl. Lots of imports. I saw some Beatles that I'm pretty sure were all in Japanese.
Yeah,
Yes.
there was and it wasn't in vinyl, but it was a set of Beatles CDs. I don't know exactly which albums were in the set, but the packaging was in Japanese, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh! If I had $100 lying around, I mean, absolutely."
Did any of you guys see the stack that said bootleg?
Yes,
I did not actually.
Yes, I saw that, and I was like, I should not check that out.
I just love that it was stuck on the same shelf as the original editions and like the all the first presses and stuff like that.
That was probably the best rack in the store. I mean, it had a lot in terms of classic rock, which I'm fine with. But my problem is that my present vinyl collection consists of about 90% classical rock and not much of anything else.
What you mean? I was fine with it, but my main issue was I was in there. I was like, "Ooh, Beatles." Let me try to find the White Album, and the White Album wasn't there. I was like, "Ooh, Foghat." I wonder if they have an album with Slow Ride on it, and they didn't. So it seemed like they had more of the obscure vinyls
releases,
there. Yeah.
or they did have a lot of imports. So they had lots of like the small cuts.
Yeah.
Things like that.
One of the ones I got from there was Van Halen 2, which is a really good one. And
Yes.
it's not a reprint. It was one of the original Van Halen 2s released in the 80s.
Yeah, I got U2's The Joshua Tree from there, which I had been hunting that for a while, and I got the only one that they had, and so I was really excited to pick that up. We were listening to it earlier as we were going through the stuff when we got back home, and we were listening to Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For, and I'm just like, man, this is how this song was meant to be heard, was on vinyl.
And then the other album I got was one that was Johnny Cash's greatest hits. It has Folsom Prison Blues, Cry Cry Cry, Walk the Line, and a bunch of other awesome songs.
A lot of his
and again,
early Sun Record hits.
yeah, and again, original release of his greatest hits, not a reprint,
Yes.
which I got for $6.
Yeah, and granted, it did have a bit of damage to one side of it, but it doesn't
Yeah, but
look like
still.
it doesn't look like it's gonna. It didn't look like it would affect it that much.
And even if it did, $6.
Yeah, I mean, and then yeah, like you were talking, like the band that was playing, they were playing Muddy Waters covers, T-Bone Walker covers. I mean, they knew their stuff. They knew the blues standards, and they were playing them very, very well. The acoustics of the room really sucked, and so the audio quality, it was live music, so I'm not expecting much. But when I was able to watch them, those guys could play.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the other place that we went to, Guest Room Records, they just had like 80s heavy metal blaring over the speakers.
Yeah, I mean they did have a pretty.
Metallica.
They did have a lot of Metallica.
They had a pretty good selection. They even had a few sections that were dollar records. And if I would have been able to check my checking account sooner, I would have definitely gotten the Game of Thrones soundtrack. They had a bunch of soundtracks on vinyl.
Yes, I
The
have.
soundtrack section. Yeah, anything and everything. Godfather, Walking Dead.
Beverly
Game of
Hills Cop.
Thrones. Yes, Beverly. They did have Beverly
Which
Hills
there was
Cop.
only $7, and right now I'm kind of regretting that I didn't get Beverly Hills Cop.
Oh well, I mean, there's worse things to get. I mean, I'm just thankful that you didn't pick up the Serial. The Serial soundtrack.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was there until I was looking through Facebook and saw that you had posted a picture of it.
I mean, the music from Serial, the podcast Serial, it definitely fit as far as like the narration, Sarah Koenig's narration, but I wouldn't want to listen to that just
Yeah.
in normal sense. And then we also before we went to Guest Room, we went to lunch at S&B Burgers, which we were anxiously awaiting that for a long time.
Yes.
And then
Best offerings in OKC, probably.
y'all have great food here, and y'all have food that I wish we could get in Amarillo in the Panhandle area.
The only confusing part for S&B is that they've got two locations on May. They've got one on North May, which is on one side of the city,
And then North May.
and then one on the other end.
Yeah, and
That's fun.
yeah, and MapQuest. People
Don't use MapQuest.
Just don't use MapQuest because it will intentionally take you on the path that will put you on a toll road, and toll roads. Why do those things exist? I'm sorry, that's a random subject.
Well, I remember learning about it in government. It was basically one of those things where they have to maintain the road, but they didn't want to tax people for roads they didn't use.
So they're going to tax people for driving.
Spot on.
Yeah, just
they're-
for driving on it. If you use it, you pay.
It's crazy. And so we took the long route to lunch today. And then after lunch, we were like, oh, well, we've got several more friends from the camp that must not be named joining us. Let's go to Barnes & Noble, which Barnes & Noble is not a record shop by any means. But they had there a lot of...
They always have an extensive music collection in the back with the movies.
well, this time, like, they had vinyl, and they had, like, good new vinyl.
Yeah, they-
Granted, it was either modern or reprint. You didn't get any of the original 70s or 80s vinyl, but still.
No, but if you were looking for modern, that was the only thing that I didn't like about Charlie Stop was that it didn't have any like new recent releases from anybody. It was all like classic stuff, which is fine. But I was hunting for some newer stuff too, like Carrie and Lowell, the new album from Sufjan Stevens, which Barnes & Noble had, and I immediately like bought that on the spot.
Yeah, it was like 5 seconds, maybe, probably less, that he saw it and then was like, I'm buying this. I'm done with record store day.
Yeah, and then we went to another one, and I bought another record. And then I also bought Fleet Fox's Helplessness Blues at Barnes & Noble, which ever since I like first heard that album back a long time ago, I thought, man, if I ever get into vinyl, that's going to be an album that I want to own. Like, if you're not familiar with Fleet Foxes and their album Helplessness Blues, you definitely need to go look it up. And you listen to it, and it's got a really, really good 60s, 70s folk vibe that just translates really well today. It just sounds so good on vinyl. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. We played it earlier, and I was like, man, this is... I was right. Several years ago when I wanted this on vinyl, I did want this on vinyl, and now I have it.
Good album, what I've heard of so far.
Yeah, and then as a thanks for John for chauffeuring us around Oklahoma City and for getting us from point A to point B.
Except for the user error with MapQuest.
Well, that wasn't your fault. That was MapQuest's fault. Like,
Yeah.
Well, I did put the wrong address in, so that's...
Well, you also didn't know that there was a fourth SMB there too. I gave him the download card for Fleet Foxes just because I already had the album digitally, and so I hope you enjoy it because I really enjoy it.
I am definitely looking forward to it.
And then after we ate, we went to guest room finally. I wish we had gone there first.
Yeah, and as far as my record store day went, I didn't get anything at guest room, like I said. Really wish I would have now, but oh well. But at Barnes & Noble, they had a front section and a back section. The front section, looking around in it, I thought it was all the vinyl they had. Picked up Paranoid by Black Sabbath, picked up Hybrid Theory by Linkin Park, and grabbed Save Rock and Roll by Fall Out Boy. But again, that's all I thought they had. And so I was like, 3 vinyl. Okay, I can afford this. This is good. I'm good.
Yeah.
Then we went to the back. I was like, might as well look through the selection. And they had Guardians of the Galaxy Deluxe Edition on vinyl. Now, this means that they had 2 discs. One disc that was the 80s music, that was from Awesome Mix Volume 1. And then one disc that was the original symphonic music made for the film. So I said, okay, I'm sorry. I really like you, Fall Out Boy, but... I'm going to put you back, and I'm getting Guardians of the Galaxy.
Fall Out Boy, if you're listening, and I doubt you are, if it gives you any consolation, Brett gave your most recent album that you put out back in January a really good grade. So
yeah, Fall Out Boy, you're doing fine.
Even though you just said that you had to, sacrifice them on the altar of Guardians of the Galaxy.
But if I would have known exactly the amount of money I had, I would have probably gotten it as well as Guardians of the Galaxy. But like that, with the amount of 80s hits in Guardians of the Galaxy, and as I said in a previous episode, it would be one of the albums I would get on a desert island.
That is true. That is actually very true. I forgot about that.
So it was one of those things where I had no choice but to get Guardians of the Galaxy.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And then we went, that was at Barnes & Noble, and then at Guest Room. Guest Room had everything that I had bought at the other 2 locations. Except it happened to have a certain record from a certain band known as Opeth, which, if you've been a regular listener of the show, you know that, like, Opeth is one of my favorite bands of all time, no questions asked. And they had Pale Communion on vinyl. I had been hunting that. Our local Amarillo entertainment conglomerate store called Hastings doesn't have it. And so I saw it, and I was like, oh, they have this. I've been wanting this. I think I'm going to buy it. Pale Communion was 3? Yeah, 3rd in our top 10 last year. Followed by Anubis Gate, and then followed by King's Kaleidoscope. Which, okay, briefly, I didn't put this in the show notes, guys, but King's Kaleidoscope has a new EP, a live EP coming out next week, and they are giving it away for free on their website.
Awesome.
So the album, the band responsible for our 2014 album of the year, putting out a live EP on their website for free. You don't need any further instructions. Oh, wait. Are you... Oh, John.
For those of you out there curious, Amazon has Pale Communion for $10. And it also qualifies for Amazon Prime, which if you're a Prime member, you can get shipped in 2 days for free.
John is trolling me on my show.
So how much did Pale Communion cost you there at Guest Room?
$30.
$30. Wow. Not that I am not all about supporting local business. I love local business. Guest Room was great. Not really my vibe, but pretty good.
It did play a lot. It did play a lot of loud metal, which
exorbitantly high prices though.
Yes.
Equivalent albums that I'd seen other places were like $35. Other places, well, even we had just walked out of Barnes & Noble, the big box store, an album that was $20 at Barnes and Noble was 35 at Guest Room.
Yeah, like I spent at Barnes and Nobles. I think it was it was 25 for a 2-disc Guardians of the Galaxy collection, and then most of the single record albums at Guest Room were at least $20.
Yeah.
a lot of them were like 35.
Well, and that's the thing too with Record Store Day that just buying vinyl in general gets a lot of pushback. It's not cheap.
No, it is not at all.
Buying vinyl isn't cheap, and then you can go to Amazon and you can get Pale Communion on the vinyl for $10. But
You know what we need to look for now, right?
no, what?
Theocracy on vinyl.
They don't make it on vinyl.
Dang
Although
it.
I will say, it seems like Brett's purchase was a winner compared
Yes.
to Amazon prices.
On Amazon price, the price of the Guardians of the Galaxy Deluxe 2 record edition is $30, whereas I got a nice $5 discount.
I am
Okay.
a bit of an Amazon fiend.
No,
So,
you don't say.
like
You were
that
the one who
represented
could-
things in my home.
You were the one who convinced me to get Amazon Prime.
It's great. You get to stream music and movies for free. You get a couple free Kindle books, and then the 2-day shipping. As a college student, man, this thing saved my butt.
Yeah, the
It
2-day
does
shipping
sound-
alone is worth the $30 a year.
and especially
absolutely.
at the camp that must not be named. But as far as like buying vinyl online, I mean, the thing with a $10 price point for like Pale Communion is that Record Store Day is trying to revitalize a long lost trend of going
Absolutely.
and like physically shopping. Which, I mean, yes, the convenience of digital retailers is awesome. I mean, Amazon Prime is probably the greatest service that you could interact with on the internet. But as far as Amazon Prime just does not give you going to a record store and just thumbing through
No, not at all.
physical records.
I mean, there's just something about that just feels incredible.
Yeah, I mean,
The atmosphere overall, the smell, the feel, you get to actually walk away with a product.
yes.
Your card wasn't charged, and then you have nothing for a week, for a few days.
And when you're looking through music on like iTunes or Amazon or Rhapsody or whatever you use, you don't get the same feeling of excitement as you do when you're thumbing through records and see something that just stands out and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is here.
Yes.
It's like a Christmas present. You pull the wrapping back, you get through those,
The stuff that you throw away whenever
that
you
stuff
open.
your mom and dad listen to, and you're like, oh gosh, really? There's nothing in this bit. What?
Oh,
And
wait.
you've got like the White Album.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, it might be ratty on the edges. Somebody brought it in and sold it for like $10, but I mean, it's a great album, and
Yeah.
you've got this little piece of gold that,
Yeah, I mean,
hate it.
yeah, I mean, we talked about on a prior episode, I think, about like supporting Record Store Day and why I want to support Record Store Day and why we took this trip up here to go and actually spend money on records. I think I spent close to $100 today just on records alone.
I think I spent
you're
close to
low
that
end
too.
There. I think you spent a little bit more than that.
Well, I'm just trying to be conservative with my estimates.
Yes,
I don't.
16 at Trolley Stop. It was close to 80 at Barnes Noble. Yeah, it was nearly 100 for me.
But I would say that it was worth it for the sake of for making the statement that we want vinyl.
Absolutely.
For making the statement that we want vinyl, we want more of it. We've been saying on the show for forever now that vinyl has moved past fad stage.
Yeah.
That vinyl, the growth that vinyl has had as a medium for the past 5 years, no other fad can account for that.
And perfect example. Earlier, we were listening to my vinyl of Paranoid, and of course, one of the tracks on it was Paranoid.
Yeah.
And it's a song I love. I've listened to it multiple times. Then I got to the guitar solo. I'm like, wait a minute. I don't remember this guitar solo sounding this good. It did not sound like this on the CD or on the MP3. This is amazing.
Yeah, and the thing with vinyl is that, I mean, people say like, oh well, it sounds exactly the same. No, it objectively is better.
Which honestly, I'll admit, I used to think that. But then Austin has Abbey Road on Beatles, and I listened to it on vinyl just because it's the Beatles.
It's the
I'm
Beatles.
going to listen to this when Austin's playing it. And I'm like, I don't remember hearing these parts ever.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, I'm totally on board with vinyl. I'm on board with vinyl for all the older music that I love.
Right.
Sinatra, any day I'll take it over vinyl over, my MP3s or my Rhapsody downloads, whatever.
Right.
Same for Beatles. A lot of things fit in that category. But a lot of the newer stuff that I listen to, I just don't think vinyl quite gives it the push that it needs. Some of it.
Well, so you're saying like it just doesn't add anything extra special to it?
I really don't get that feeling. We were running Austin's turntable through my stereo, and I'm not like rap or anything like that kind of bass, but I like a good low end, and the bass quality that I can get out of my surround sound system, and some of the CDs that I play on there. I feel like we sacrifice a lot of audio quality when we use MP3s and just a digital file.
Right.
But a CD has just this perfect, crisp, clear sound. And so for some of the newer music, I think a compact disc is one of the best mediums to transfer that.
Well, I would agree with that up to a point, but the big thing is that vinyl is what we call a lossless audio format. They don't compress it in any way, shape, or form, and so all of the frequencies that went into mixing and mastering the album are still there. Whenever you have a compressed audio format, which is what a CD is, it necessarily takes off frequencies and other things that were there on the album for the sake of saving space. Yeah, CDs are super convenient, and I mean, when you add the right amount of compression, it can give it that necessary push to make it sound better. But especially with compact discs as of late, there's been something that's been going on that certain music writers have called the loudness wars, where the way that an album is mastered, they crank the output up so much, and there's this semi-war with no actual sides or whatever going, where everyone is just trying to out loud the other as far as how loud can I master this CD and how much can I pump this volume, and you lose a lot in the process. I mean, as far as what's pleasing to the ear, I mean, sure, if someone can say and genuinely mean that they like CD quality better, but as far as on paper specs and stats, a lossless audio format is objectively better every time.
And one thing too to think about, like you were saying, John, a lot of the newer music that's coming out doesn't really have that big of a difference between CD and vinyl. But back in the day, with artists like Sinatra, the Beatles, and all of them, they intended for their music to be on vinyl. But a lot of them. Yeah. But a lot of the modern musicians intend for their music to be on CDs or
even
on
just
MP3,
release,
or
so they format it for that.
So they don't really have the complexity a lot of the times, which not really a bad thing, but they don't have a lot of the things that will come out and be prevalent in vinyl.
Right.
And then you have an artist like Jack White, who honestly, I don't like Jack White that much. I like some of the White Stripes stuff. I can appreciate Jack White as an artist, but I just don't like a lot of his stuff. But you have his album Lazaretto, which was intended to be a vinyl release, which, depending on where you start the vinyl, has different introductions and all of that.
Yeah.
So perhaps if this final popularity that's been going on continues, maybe a lot of the newer artists coming out will be able to produce albums that do see the complexity that you get out of vinyl versus CDs or MP3.
Which is interesting too, in that I read a report on Billboard the other day that said that the insider opinion at the moment is still that vinyl is not an essential option for musicians, and it probably never will be again. I mean, now that we've entered the digital era, physical formats are always going to be optional at this point. But I mean, Jack White did intentionally do Lazaretto for the sake of it being a vinyl release, and it's one of the most incredible vinyl albums as far as its production that's ever been made. And so we'll probably never see that kind of dedication by default. I mean, the Beatles had no choice in making it like that. Jack White did. And so if artists want to go that way, they're going to have to intentionally choose to do that way, which I'm fine with that.
Which, if more artists chose to do that, I'd be very happy with it.
And that brings up another conversation topic: the difference between the expectations of the listener and what the artist chooses. Because people like John Lennon was one of the most forward-thinking artists of his day.
Oh yeah.
Had he had the option to record and format music specifically for a compact disc or even digital, he would have totally been on board for that, I'm sure. Because he was, I mean, he was crazy out there in the things that he did, the styles that he used. I mean, the Beatles were mixing and weaving different musical styles in and out and trying different things that nobody had before. So given that option, I think Beatles music today would be drastically different than the stuff that we know and love on vinyl and
It would be
even 8 tracks.
It would have been fascinating to hear well, even to hear what John Lennon would have to say about the way music is even going today. I mean, Paul McCartney is still alive, and Paul McCartney has commented on stuff of the digital music trends. But it would definitely have been interesting to see what the Beatles would have done, what any of the artists of old would have done as far as that goes. But I love vinyl, and I hope vinyl sticks around.
Absolutely, I enjoy it. I just personal preference thing. I think it's got its medium, and there's some that I will just love on vinyl, and there's some others that I might just prefer on my CD.
Sure, and I would definitely say that vinyl is not the most convenient format ever.
Not at all.
And that's one thing that CD. I mean, if you're going to go for the convenient factor, CD wins.
No,
Oh,
MP3
no, it doesn't.
wins.
It's MP3. It's
Well, yeah.
your iTunes. It's everything you download directly as you're going. It's streaming from the internet as you move.
Yeah.
It's like the difference in these guys don't shave. They have full beards. But
Yes,
I
we
do
do.
have a nice, glorious goatee, but I like to keep a nice, clean shave on the face.
So you like the best of both worlds, and you don't like to commit to either option.
Exactly. Vinyl, and that's where I'm going with the music too. Vinyl is like the wet shave. You're sitting there, you got to warm your face up, you've got to work up a lather with the brush, you've got to put that on, you grab the safety razor or the straight razor, and you slowly clean your face. You slowly get back down to the skin. It's the medium for when you have time, and you're really just wanting to have that experience. CDs and MP3s are, the Gillettes and the Mach 5s and other crap like that
They get the job done.
it gets the job done. I got up late and I still had to shave for work, and so you just hit it real quick and move on.
Yeah. That's actually a fantastic analogy.
Yeah, it's really good.
That's actually a really dang good analogy. I think we'll title this episode "Vinyl: The Wet Shave." Yeah. So if you're listening to this, obviously Record Store Day is over. But if you've been debating as to whether or not you want to get into vinyl or start collecting vinyl or rediscovering vinyl, just save up some money. I mean, it's like we've talked about, it's not cheap. Just start saving up some money. You don't have to go out and buy the most expensive record player that ever, but
Definitely consult the Oracle. Get on get on the internet, search Google, I'm not going to say search Bing because Bing sucks.
I love Bing.
I hate
Search Google, check around, look at different blogs, find what you can in your price range. Vinyl isn't the poor man's game, but it's something that even lower level, entry level products can still get across the board well.
I mean, my record player, I paid $75 for it. I bought it off Amazon. And aside from the fact that when we were listening to it earlier, it was having a hard time getting consistent power flow. Every other time I've used it, it's worked simply, and it's got a USB out. So I mean, if and when I have time, which I will do this at some point in time, I'll take some of the good records that I have, and I'll digitally convert the vinyl format to a lossless digital format. And that would be
This is like Inception. We just go deeper. Boom.
But if there is an album,
Lossless audio
yes.
through my computer from the vinyl.
if there is an album that you legitimately love, that you listen to constantly, that speaks to you on a particular level, consider getting it on vinyl, because it is, like John was saying, the perfect example of a way to sit and enjoy the experience, which I think is something that's lost a lot of the time, because people listen to music on the radio on the way to work, listen to music on Rhapsody or on their phone, whatever, just walking around.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like a rarity for someone to just sit in their living room and play music and just listen.
We don't sit anywhere and just listen anymore. Our society is go, go, go. There's not a time, there's not a chance to stop and relax.
Yeah, that's the thing with music, is that music has become relegated to background noise. intentionally listening to music. That was what I was talking about. Was it last? No, it wasn't last week. 2 weeks ago when we talked about Carrie and Lowell, I was like,
Yeah.
you can't put this on the background. You have to sit down. You have to block everything else out, and you just have to listen to it. If you can't do that, you're not going to get it. You're not going to enjoy the album. You're not going to listen to the album. And the same thing could be said, I think, with a bunch of other albums that we've covered in the past. But vinyl prevents music from being a background focus, like a secondary thing. Vinyl, if anything, requires you to make music the primary focus of whatever it is that you're doing. And it really is helpful in a generation that is defined by ADDness, where, we have to be constantly distracted by something, constantly, refocusing our attention to something else. It takes effort to sit down and just focus your attention on something, but it's immensely rewarding, which I think is why vinyl is making a comeback, is because people are discovering, hey, when I just sit here and I just listen to this, there's a rich reward that comes from that.
Mm-hmm.
There are a few things we can be thankful for hipsters for, and vinyl's one, and
Coffee
I'm coming back to it, but the wet shave is the other. I mean,
Oh
a
my
shave
gosh.
like that, you get the closest. I mean, it's like baby smooth skin.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Thank you, hipsters.
Thank you, hipsters, for vinyl and for plaid shirts and for craft beer and for coffee. And coffee. I could go for some coffee. Coffee. Now they're going into mindless coffee chants. We could. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Do you need some more bourbon, John?
Caesar
Do
coffee.
you need the bourbon
No, I
that your
think I'm good on the
fiance
bourbon.
just sent you?
Oh, that is the 44 rye whiskey, also by Ranger Creek in Texas.
which you don't have, but your fiance.
I do not have that, but I will shortly.
Your fiance did just text you that. So we could go on and on about vinyl, but let's just go ahead and start wrapping it up. Wow, guys, we are actually going to hit a normal show length.
Awesome.
I didn't expect that.
Huzzah.
I didn't expect that to be the case. I thought this was going to be a shorter show, but I really enjoyed this, guys. Thanks for taking time out of your weekend, and John, thanks for hosting us again, for being willing to come on the show.
No problem. If you want to find somebody who's not going to be very active on Twitter, you can find me at Big John.
That is true. You are not very active. You got the Twitter for like the.
I got the Twitter for the 50th Doctor Who special.
Yes, that's right. And then I remember that.
And I think I used it for that. 24 8-episode premiere, and then the premiere of Doctor Who this year. I think I've had maybe 8 tweets
Altogether.
altogether.
Something like that. Well, let's go ahead and start closing out the show. Brett, you got a reco for this week?
Yeah. I think I have to reco road trips.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's always nice to just, I like consistency. I really do like my town. I really don't want to move from my town. But it's always nice to leave, see something different, visit friends that live somewhere else. And, it's just a nice experience to just travel and watch the landscape change. And just traveling in general. I can't see John in Canyon. I can see him in Oklahoma, right now at least.
For the brief time that he's living in here.
So, yeah, I do definitely recommend going on a road trip.
In addition to vinyl, which is obviously my reco for the show, I'm going to reco the Coop F5 IPA.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Coop Brewery or Coop Distillery out of Tulsa.
Yes.
Oh, some good stuff.
That IPA, Brett, you got it the lot when we came back here in November.
Yes, I've had 2 pint-sized cans of it in my lifetime, but it is amazing.
Very bright, high notes, grapefruity, not much sweetness going on.
No,
just
it is-
exactly what I look for in an IPA.
If we could get it in Amarillo, it would probably become my default.
Yeah, it would be a standard in our apartment if
Yeah.
we could get it in Amarillo.
Yeah, and I like too that it's in can form, which everything that you and I drink, Brett, is usually in bottle form.
Yeah, with the exception, I think the only canned beverage I've brought in, except for like Mike's Hard Lemonade, that kind of stuff, has been Oscar Blues.
Yeah, Oscar Blues was what I was thinking of, and I like it in a can. Like I was surprised. I really enjoyed it in a
Yeah,
can.
like the first time I had it, I was presented a can and a glass, so I of course poured it in the glass. But with this S&B burger joint, I only had it in a can. but it was still really good from a can.
It was fantastic. It is a delicious, delicious IPA. If you can get it, you can get it. I also want to disreco aging Dogfish Head 120-minute IPA.
Yes.
It says on the bottle that it ages well. The bottle is a lie, and science is also
The cake is a lie.
the cake is a lie,
Cake is indeed a lie.
and science. Science testifies against the claim of Dogfish Head. Love Dogfish Head. Love their beers. Love them as a brewery. But as far as Dogfish Head 120-minute, you were saving a 120-minute for John whenever we came up, and
Yeah, and I think it's been about 4 or 5 months since I got it.
yeah, and it was not good.
Yeah, basically, just for those of you who don't know, the IPA was originally meant to be shipped to India from England or from India to England so that it would be preserved, hence India Pale Ale, IPA. And so it was meant to preserve things, and eventually, throughout the travel, the hops would lose flavor. And so if you age an IPA, the hoppiness will go away.
Yeah, I was listening to one of my favorite shows, the Reformed Pubcast, and they were talking about how one of the hosts of the show knows the guy who is responsible for an IPA known as Pliny the Elder, and he was saying how if you buy at Pliny the Elder and it's got a 2 months past its expiration date, don't drink it. So just reco that. John, you got any recos for your time here on this show?
Not really. Recos, everything. Life's great. Try a wet shave.
Try a wet shave.
The lost art there. Go to a barber you trust, because those straight razors right at your throat are kind of
I don't even want to.
terrifying.
You don't want a Sweeney Todd?
No, I don't want a Sweeney Todd. Like, that's not even.
At last, my
My
arm
arm
is
is
complete
complete
again.
Yeah, I don't want that. No, I don't want that. Well, guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your weekend again to do this. I really, really enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed spending time with you guys today.
Yeah,
as far
this
as
was
It's
a really
great
fun
experience,
episode.
guys.
yeah, this was really great. John, I wish you lived closer so we could have you on the show more
Me
often.
too, guys. Me too. We'll have to do this again sometime. Maybe on a trip down to college.
Yeah,
station.
yeah, for your wedding, in a couple of months.
What?
Whoop whoop. If you want to contact us, you can find us on Facebook at Another Ascending Lark. If you want to send us a tweet, you can send us a tweet at A8Lblog. Our email is anotherascendinglark@gmail.com, and of course our website is anotherascendinglark.com. You can find us on YouTube. I mentioned that earlier, but just figured I'd mention it again. Next week, I don't know what we're doing next week, but I do know, and I'm going to tease this again, that the very first week of May, we are having a very, 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 very special guest, and I'm
Yes.
so freaking excited about
As
it.
am I.
Oh my gosh, like, y'all are definitely not going to want to miss that. So you guys have a great rest of your week. We will see you next week.